Perfect. Thank you, Carl, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today we're we did a presentation yesterday. We just shortened it a little bit to talk about kind of what the process is on, educating the administrators and other key personnel on a process and best practices on purchasing your new mission critical communication system. Communications for first responders is one of the most, the systems is daunting task, and it's a very big thing to undertake and a big process to go into. So it's can be complicated sometimes. So I just wanted to kind of walk through the process and see if we can, help anybody, with making the correct decision for their city or county. So today we're presenting, we've got myself, Sarah Donnelly, Director of Government System Solutions, Steve Doherty, our Strategic Sales Engineer, and then Marty will be on the call as well to help answer any questions, and he is the Regional Director for the West. So here we took, basically we wanted to look at break it down the process into like 6 actions to focus on and kind of help you along the way. One of the main things is obviously recognizing you need a new radio system. Your system's 15, 20 years old, knowing that you need a new system, recognizing you need to update it. Organizing a focus group, who do we want to be involved on this process? Gather information, so getting out there, getting as much information as possible to get the best new communication systems for your first responders. Educate. Also, obviously educate, understand the newest technology out there, what options are out there for you guys to move forward with on your communication system. And then review. So review, obviously look at the whole process, understand all the information, and help you choose your new communication system provider. So with that, we came up with the little acronym, Roger That. I'm sure everybody knows that term. So recognize. All right, so here you go. Obviously, your equipment is end of life. It is no longer being supported by the vendor. You're buying parts off of eBay. Your radio technical team are just barely keeping the system alive. So you know that you need to go out there go out to an RFP for a new radio system. So that's obviously the first step, is realizing that you've got to update your equipment. Organize. So one of the first steps, obviously, starting an evaluation committee. This is a big project to take on. So you want to have, as much input from everybody in the city or county that you're working with. So, make sure you get the police chiefs involved, captains, fire chiefs, directors. It's always important to get somebody from the city council or the board of supervisors, and then also someone in the dispatch center. That's, a big portion of it too. So you want to get somebody on that side, as well as procurement. Always get a procurement manager involved early on to help with that process. And then, usually the leader of the IT, the radio department, was a big part of this project. So who, as the leader of the project, who do you talk to? Obviously, it's extremely important to get feedback from your users, understand where they're having issues in the county, what features that they want on the new system. So get out there, talk to the police department. You want to talk to the fire department. Obviously someone in EMT, ambulance, dispatch centers, IT department, radio technicians, and then as well as the cities, counties around you. So you understand about interoperability and possibly what system they have, and see what works for them, and just kind of get feedback from them as well. Gather. So the procurement process can be a very trying little area. Rules, understanding it, RFP, RFI, sole source, what are the options there? Do you have to go to RFI to look at some budgetary numbers? Do you have the ability to sole source with, your chosen vendor? So really looking at that, looking at if the purchase is going to be a capital expenditure or operational expenditure. Budget considerations, usually, you know that you need to update your system, many years prior. So getting with procurement and city managers and understanding, when we can work this into the budget is obviously going to be a big task, because this is usually a very large purchase. So definitely looking at the budget and when you can get that into the upcoming year budget numbers. And then what's the approval process through the council or commissioner? So do you have to go in front of the council before the RFP needs to be released, and just keeping them involved in the process too, since it is such a large purchase. So there are lots of ways to go out and purchase the system. You've got different grants out there, bonds, special measures as well. Can you do a release of public safety tax, different taxes as well that you can also look into about helping you purchase the system. And then financing. I know a lot of the vendors provide financing nowadays. So, look at all the different options that you can see what options are out there for you to purchase this new radio system. So educate, and I'll let Steve take over from here.
Hey everybody, Steve Doherty, System Solutions Engineer for JVCKenwood. We're just going to cover a little bit about the radio system technologies. They're very confusing to users. They're generally not on the technical side. So they're people that actually use the devices but don't understand thoroughly how the devices work, etc. And they don't need to. That's what the IT department and the radio shop is there to help educate, and also the OEM vendors. Part of their role is to help educate everybody on what they've got, what they need, and how to use it the most effective way for what their needs are. So there's technologies like, or acronyms, VHF, UHF, 700-800 megahertz. There's LTE. There's a lot of different acronyms to explain the types of technologies. We get into simulcast and multicast, different modulation methods, etc. There's trunking and conventional, which vary considerably based on how much user intervention is required as an officer or anybody it may be who's traveling through the county. They may have to use some manual intervention on the radios to keep in the same talk group. There's analog and digital, which is significantly different. There's a slight difference in footprint of how far digital will travel compared to analog, but there's also noise and quality of speech that is affected as well, and that's where the DOQ comes into it as well. There's dispatch consoles. There's a number of different vendors out there that make great dispatch consoles. It's a matter of choosing the one that best suits the people in the dispatch center. They're the ones that have to use the devices. So if they want to use a particular brand or model, then that absolutely has to be considered. And that's the beauty of the P25 format, is that everybody has to play nice with each other. There's also ISSI and CSSI gateways for RF tying of systems together, and also different consoles. Lastly here, there's BDA DAS systems in areas where there's significant issues with coverage into buildings, apartment complexes, hospitals, especially establishments like that. You could put a number of tower sites, RF sites around, and they still may not get into the buildings with, especially hospitals. They have a lot of lead shielding, etc. there that makes it difficult for RF to get in there. Also buildings that have wire in the glass of the windows for security and things like that, it definitely blocks RF. With schools, you'd run into issues with a lot of windows that trying to prevent RF signals getting in there. So do we need a consultant? A question comes up a lot to us while we're out in the field talking to people and customers. It's obviously up to the individual customer or the county or the city whether they want to go to a consultant. The consultant can offer insight on what they need and how it's going to best suit their needs. They do delve pretty deeply into the users to see exactly how they're going to use it. They go out to the RF sites and visit them, and they see exactly what's out there right now, and then do a comparison of that to other systems, and then offer that solution that they think would work best for the county or the city. It definitely costs money to get that report. Each of those site visits is time consuming. In some remote areas, they may have to go out with the PD via helicopter, etc. So there is some significant time spent there, which obviously costs money from the consultant's point of view. It takes valuable time to do it, as we just discussed. And it also takes time out of the RF tech's schedule as well, as an escort, showing them around the site. So it does take valuable time. So you do have to plan on things like that. They usually come up with a solution and a rough idea of price. Sticker shock can be surprising when you first see the amount of money it's going to cost to get the system of your dreams. You're talking tens of millions of dollars in some cases. So, you know, it's worth looking at what they have to offer and what can suit what you need. Can we manage the project on our own? More than likely, larger cities or counties can. They generally have project managers on staff that can take on a little bit of extra workload, but it is a large, daunting task, as Sarah mentioned earlier. So in some cases, the local city or county will have a dedicated person or bring a person on, and that would be their role. The equipment, original equipment manufacturers, they have project managers within their company that do this every day. They have construction managers. They deal with civil engineering. They actually go to engineering firms to be able to come up with structurals, grounding. There's a significant amount of work involved. There's FCC licensing if you're planning on running possibly a hybrid system or changing frequency bands altogether. And then there's warranty and maintenance, which is obviously complex. That more than likely would be through the original equipment manufacturer, but it could be through a local service provider. And then there's support. You need an LSP that's going to be able to be trained on the system and be able to work on the system and keep you supported for as long as you need. So why do we go to RFP? Manufacturers offer different solutions. There's many different ways that you can offer the solution, but obviously the main goal is to get the best solution that suits your needs. If you're after many levels of redundancy, if you're after so many different definitions within the system, this is when you actually read the responses from each of the manufacturers and determine which one suits your needs. So from that RFP, a lot of pages. In some cases, they can be up to 2,000 pages for an RFP response. So it does take a while to look over the RFP response. And if you've got all manufacturers in there, then you'll see the difference between all of their equipment, RSSI, all that kind of stuff from their subscriber devices. Plenty of things to cover there. Competition reduces price. If you end up sole sourcing, more than likely you're going to pay full retail for that system. So it's recommended to bring in a little bit of competition, and that's why the RFP is good in that case. You'll see different components cost different prices from different manufacturers. So that's where you can come up with what you want that, again, best suits your needs. We also get to learn a fair bit about the system and just about how we use it and what is there in the future that we can actually bring on board and help make our lives easier and less complex. The goal is to have a system that works seamlessly with very little manual intervention and saves lives. That's the #1 goal. The time to choose the best solution. When you do go through the RFP process, it'll give you a little bit of extra time to look over it. It's usually a 90-day response that everybody gets to pick, so you get that moment where you can actually take a breath. So what makes up a public safety radio system? Many components, dispatch consoles, obviously. There's tower and antenna infrastructure. There's sites, shelters. There's the repeaters, which is a significant part of the whole solution. There's the subscriber units, which are both portable and mobiles. There's control stations as well. There's the important part, which is the network management system. The purpose of that is so you can monitor the whole system, the radio system, remotely from either a terminal or someone's laptop, remote it into the system. You can do configurations there. You can monitor all alarming. You can determine that there's issues within the system well before a user mentions it to you, so you have the chance to restore the system prior to getting feedback from customers. Very powerful tool. Everybody has one, obviously. It's just a matter of how it works and if it suits your needs. And then controllers, how you control the whole system, the channel management, etc. There's many different versions of that. There's also microwave, fiber optic, and T1 backhaul. Obviously extremely important. T1s are a little bit more expensive and more dated. Fiber optic can be expensive, getting it to a location or an RF site. And then you have the most common form, which is microwave. Alarming is the next stage. That's a very important component within all of that. Am I still on the call? Did it drop out?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, sorry. One of the screens disappeared. I apologize. So alarming, very important. If you know what's going right or wrong with the system, you can monitor it and keep it in check and keep it going well. Logging recorders, very important for protection of staff in the event that something does go wrong, and you'll need to make sure you've got a valid recording of what actually went on. And it's also a good learning device to be able to look back at and realize that you could have done something a little bit better. So logging recorder is a very important component. Then there's the CAD, of course, for out in the field. Then there's the battery backup. So radio tiering, generally most manufacturers have 3 tiers. There's the low tier radio, medium, and the high. The high is usually the full feature, multi-band, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, LTE, you name it, it's got the whole lot. The lower tier may not have a keypad. It may just have basic communication buttons. It'll have the volume and the channel, and also for zones. So that's pretty much the way, and they're priced accordingly as well, as you can see. So we go to the next. And there's the 3 tiers, and then review, and it's back to Sarah.
Thank you, Steve. So all this process, all the process here, you know, when selecting a vendor, it's really important to look at these things. Steve, can you move to the next slide, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. It's okay. So when selecting a vendor, you know, usually these are all the components that help you choose that. Really things to focus on, obviously, is price. You know, price is always going to play a factor in it. You know, especially right now, we know budgets are being cut due to COVID and stuff. So, you know, just really understanding price and the value of what you're getting for the cost of it. Total cost of ownership, obviously, what is the total cost over that 10, 15 years? Definitely want to focus on, you know, usually about 15 years is about what we see in the RFPs these days. So what would that total cost be after all those 15 years? What are there any hidden costs for future upgrades or functionality? Do you have to, you know, questions to ask, do you have to purchase any additional licenses if you need to grow your system? Or are there any software upgrades that you need to do, you know, every 2 to 3 years to, you know, make sure that you're being able to communicate with the neighboring counties? So lots of things to consider too, as well as end of life. You know, when will you have to forklift your radio system in the next 15, 20 years? You know, how long will that system last you? Obviously, implementation is a big factor as well. You want to look at who's the team you're partnering with, how long that's going to take, and then what the process is with the cutover, as well as what their acceptance testing is as well. Warranty and support, that's obviously a huge portion too. What's the warranty associated with that radio system, with those radios, infrastructure? You know, when do you need to upgrade any of the software or the firmware? You know, understanding all of that warranty and who's going to support you. You know, 24-hour hotline, do you have the local service provider, and just really understanding who's going to support you in case, you know, something does happen with your radio system. So all of these obviously take a huge, you know, help you make your decision on selecting a vendor. And yeah, so like we said, did you Roger that? So hopefully this, you know, kind of helps you along the process of when you are upgrading your radio system. And you know, Steve, myself, and Marty are always available to answer any questions. And I know Carl here with ABCO, he recently upgraded his system, so I'm sure he's a great resource as well too. So it's always good just to talk to your fellow colleagues and neighboring counties to see what, you know, what worked for them and what didn't.
All right, thank you very